shop. I'll be a moderator for this evening's topic, the future of democracy in Thailand. We acknowledge and respect the first Australians in whose traditional lands you meet, and pay our respects to the elders of the Ngunnawal people, past and present. I would like to thank the ANU ASEAN Society and the Thai Association for collaborating to make this event happen, and to our esteemed guest speakers for tonight, Dr. Nicholas Farrelly, Sarah Bishop, and Dr. John Blackstone, for whom we are very fortunate to have today as our guest speakers. Now, I understand that the recent political turmoil in Thailand has been incredibly chaotic and messy, and I'll do my best to summarize the key events, just to provide a brief background to the public lecture. Anti-government protests, led by former Democrat Party Secretary General Suthep Thaugsuban, began against then Prime Minister Yingluck Shinawatra in November 2013 in response to a proposed blanket amnesty bill that would have pardoned several key politicians, including controversially Thaksin Shinawatra. With demonstrators calling for the resignation of Yingluck and her PT government, Yingluck Shinawatra dissolved the House of Representatives, calling for a snap general election on the 2nd of February this year. However, the Constitutional Court annulled the results due to the disruption to the electoral process by opposition protesters. This did not stop the protests, which took a more violent and ugly turn as shootings occurred and grenades were thrown at protesters, as you might have seen in the news earlier this year. And this led to a declaration of a state of emergency by the Pheu Thai government. On the 7th of May, the Constitutional Court dismissed Yingluck Shinawatra and 9 other ministers for the transfer of a national security head and his replacement by a relative. And on the 20th of May, the Royal Thai Army, led by General Prayut Chan-o-cha, imposed martial law to quell the persisting violence, and just 2 days later, formally launched a military coup. The National Council of Peace and Order was established as a ruling administration, as an sort of an interim government by the Royal Thai Army, and this council has enacted a raft of policies typical of any military coup, such as dissolving the government and the Senate, banning political organizations and groupings, arresting politicians, imposing internet censorship, and establishing a military-dominated legislature. So as you can tell, the past months have been really busy. And on the 24th of August, General Prayut Chan-o-cha was elected unanimously by the National Council of Peace and Order as the 29th Prime Minister of Thailand. So that's where. So we are very graced, and we're very lucky today to be joined by 3 well-renowned speakers from the ANU in what will be a very interesting public lecture, followed by hopefully an enticing discussion forum later on. Our first speaker for today is Dr. Nicholas Farrelly, and Dr. Farrelly is a research fellow in the ANU College of Asia and Pacific. In 2006, he co-founded a new Mandala, which has served as a vibrant forum for the discussion of Thai politics. And for the first half of this year, Dr. Farrelly was based in Myanmar, undertaking an Australian Research Council-funded study of political cultures in transition, and was in Naypyidaw, Myanmar's new capital, on the day of Thailand's May 2014 coup. Tonight, he will be speaking about the role of the coup culture in the development of Thailand's crisis. So without further ado, I'd like to invite Dr. Farrelly to have the stage.
Thanks very much, Jishendra, for that very warm introduction. Good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure for me to be here this evening and to have the opportunity to address you on what I must confess is one of my favourite topics, Thailand's coup culture. And it's one of my favourite topics because, frankly, there is so much that you can say. I have in the past tried to say a great deal about this topic in a 2013 Australian Journal of International Affairs article. If you are in any way enticed by the few fragments that I throw in your direction here this evening, then please do go and check that one out. I'm going to focus my discussion here on 3 key questions. The first question, which is the question at the heart of my treatment of Thailand's coup culture, is why is it that Thailand still has regular coups? And I think, as many of you would appreciate, the military coup is kind of old-fashioned. It feels a little bit 20th century. But Thailand has now had 2 21st century to understand why that has been such a persistent part of Thailand's political culture. The second question, I think, is a somewhat provocatively worded one. That is this 2014 coup actually a problem? I'll give you some of my thoughts on those matters, and then finally and very briefly I will gallop towards some interrogation of the dangers that might be relevant to the 2014 coup and everything that might unfold in the years to come. Before I get into those three questions though, we're going to have a little bit of a language lesson. Okay, and just looking around the room, there are some people here who are going to help me with our pronunciation. What's the first word in the red? Somebody shout it out for me. Ratapahan, which means coup. Okay, and our second word is gabon, which means rebellion. Thank you very much. And I think we need to make a distinction here between coups on the one hand and rebellions on the other. And while that's not the neatest way of explaining some of the complications of these kinds of military interventions in Thai politics, it is at the very least a useful starting point. We've got plenty of gabon, rebellions, in Thai political history, going right back to 1912. We've also got the 13 military coups, including those two most recent anti-Thaksin coups in September of 2006 and May of 2014. I might be mistaken, but I don't know Earth that has such a distinguished record of military intervention. Right? This is, frankly, unique in the annals of political experience. And when you jot them out, starting right back in 1912 and galloping up towards 2014, that's the presentation. The yellow dots here, they are the gabon, the rebellions, the attempted overthrow of governments, and those in red, starting right back in 1932, are the successful military or other elite political interventions that have toppled Thailand's governments. Of course, we're most interested and that is the period since the coup of the early 1990s. You'll note that there hasn't been a failed coup, a rebellion, since 1985. I think that's important to bear in mind. So why is it that Thailand has such regular coups? And I've got four at least partial explanations. The first of those is that the military is pretty comfortable with being in charge, and going right back to the overthrow of the absolute monarchy in 1932, Thailand's armed forces have called the shots in a very direct sense for 53 years, and arguably in a variety of indirect ways in most of the other years as well. Second explanation is that the most recent coups in Thailand are profoundly anti-Thaksin. Those who are in favour of these coups will define them in those terms. Those who are against these coups will define them in those terms. And I think, at the end of the day, it's the fact that Thaksin has been so successful electorally, which has generated and galvanised such resentment of the sort of success that his side of Thai politics has been able to muster. The third explanation, this is really important. If you put yourself in the boots of somebody who is calling the shots on a coup in Thailand or anywhere else, you've got to think about what really matters. What really matters is that you don't go to jail and you don't end up getting shot. And the wonderful thing about being a coup maker in Thailand is that you basically never go to jail, you basically never end up dead. Okay? This is an important part of why the coup culture characteristic in terms of being able to replicate itself generation in and generation out. I think the fourth explanation that explains why Thailand still has such regular coups is that the defence of the monarchy as an umbrella justification for political action is so incredibly potent. And of course, what did General Prayut do? Soon after the 2014 coup, he had to go and pay tribute in the following style to an image of His Majesty the King. I think you all appreciate that in Thai political life, this is the sort of imagery that comes with huge weight, huge historical potency, mythology, cosmology, and everything else. It's difficult for people to array themselves against such an image and the person at the centre of it. So my second question is, should we consider the 2014 coup to be a problem for Thailand?
I'm going to give you the yes and the no. I'll allow you, I hope, to determine how you come down in assessing the value of these different arguments. And let's start with the no. Thailand's coup isn't such a problem, and I think these are a few of the key arguments that have been marshalled in that direction. Firstly, nobody's been killed. It's been, as many Thai coups are, a very peaceful period since the coup government has started to implement its agenda. Of course, there have been some curbs on free expression and all the rest, and while dissenters have been rounded up, most of them have eventually been released. Critical comments are circulating pretty widely, and I reckon for all of the Facebook denizens and the Twitterers and all the rest, you'll have some appreciation of the kind of stuff that circulates in cyberspace. Of course, there are efforts to clamp down on that, but a lot of people would suggest that at the end of the day, most people are still getting to have their say. And this is the kicker, it's the most important point on this slide, it is that the current military government, in its newly rationalised legislative form, seems inclined to resume something like semi-democratic government at some stage in the future. And so for that reason, perhaps it's not such a problem that we had the 2014 coup. On the other hand, there are those who are going to argue that this is a really serious problem, that Thailand is now in dire straits. Its political institutions are broken. And while the army is in the habit of relinquishing power, there's absolutely no guarantee that's going to happen this time around. It could be the case that the 2014 coup signals a profound hardening of Thailand's political environment. The preamble is over, people are ready for the end game. It could be that we're seeing something now which is going to be incredibly troublesome for everybody who is interested in Thailand's future political, economic and social development, precisely because the institution of the monarchy is now deeply enmeshed in the kinds of political battles that have seen these most recent coups justified and rationalised. And as I think you'd all appreciate, Thailand's king is very old. He's been on the throne since 1946. We should just emphasise that again. Since 1946, there is no reign like it in the world today, and so it would be astonishing if at the end of that reign we didn't see some incredibly powerful forces unleashed. For now, we are seeing some powerful forces unleashed. Somebody want to tell me what's happening in this picture? You should all know, or at least be able to guess. What have we got here?
Reading George Orwell.
These ones, they are reading George Orwell. Yep, so we've got that. What else have we got? Hunger Games. Okay, so we've got a three-fingered salute, right? Yep. People recognise it, and if you don't, you will before too long. There is now in Thailand a level of popular, often very youthful resistance to the new military government. It's pulling in these sassy, sexy memes, internet and otherwise, people eating sandwiches in public places as a mode of resistance to the military government, people reading George Orwell, as the gentleman in the front row suggested, people also throwing this three-finger salute. All of that as part of a set of often very gentle and very subtle efforts to try to undermine what they, on the side of opponents of the current military government, perceive to be a very unfortunate turn in the country's undemocratic development. So, with all that said, what are the dangers now? And I'm just going to give you three of what I'd like to suggest are the highlights. First is that King Bhumibol has been on the throne now for more than 68 years, and when he dies, I would assert, although we can't know for sure, that there is nobody in any of the palaces who will be able to match his charismatic authority. That's potentially a really big and dangerous thing in a society where the king is revered, no doubt about it, but where the king is also absolutely and without question a political player. Secondly, I think Thaksin as a figure of unrelenting hate means that you cannot have the ordinary mechanisms of sharing power in Thai society, at least not on a consistent basis. And that means that while Thaksin lives, while Thaksin and his proxies are prepared to contest elections, there is likely to be all manner of different and ultimately unsatisfactory outcomes. One of the reasons for that is that because of Thaksin's perceived role in drumming up anti-monarchy sentiments, there is an effort to police those sentiments with what I would describe as remorseless vigour. And then finally, and I think we haven't seen this yet, but I don't think that indicates that we won't see it ever, is that a counterattack by anti-coup forces, whoever they may be, could lead to really messy conflicts in the Thai case. I think you only need to look to what's gone on in Thailand's southernmost provinces over the past decade or more to see just how ultimately distressing and destructive a civil war at the margins of a country like Thailand can become. And I'm just going to conclude by really emphasising that point. There hasn't been major political violence associated with the 2014 coup. Some people have gone to jail, they've mostly re-emerged. Online commentary's been shut down, a few seminars and academic workshops here and there have been discouraged. There have been efforts to try and shift the political terrain in favour of the current military government. That's inevitable and understandable. On the other hand, in the three southernmost provinces, there has been serious war now going on for the past more than 10 years. And that's a war which is the reignition of much longer term and long simmering conflicts. You can see the numbers for yourselves up on the screen. Given all of the Bangkok-based political dramas in Thailand, I don't think there is going to be any quick or easy resolution to the kinds of conflicts that occur in the Deep South. And for that reason, at least one of Thailand's fringes is likely to remain a profoundly unhappy place. On that very sober note, I'm going to conclude my brief remarks. Very much look forward to the discussion, questions. I think that's why Sarah and John are here. Very much appreciate your attendance, and I look forward to the discussion to come. Thank you.